House Committee on Electoral Matters. We're looking at legislative aspects, as a matter of fact, how these laws, are passed. And we started off with the cybersecurity levy and matters arising and the complaints that are out there. And there have been, aspects that we've touched on about how much is the House doing to actually help enlighten the people. And the Honorable has explained to us that, well, it's a two-way street, as a matter of fact. People, do not show the interest that they need to show. And as a result of that, when things have come to a completion, it then surprises people. Okay, we'll continue. And hearing of some of these challenges, Honorable Balogun was about to talk about yet another instance before we had to go on break.
I just want to react to some of the
issues
raised by the callers. Now, someone said something about our motions that are not being taken seriously. You see, when motions are moved and recommendations sent to the executive, it is not every time we know if they are actually done or not. My motion on the coastal road was done in 2019, when we came in 2019. Today, the coastal road is being executed. Will I say it was actually reacted to or not? Because it's not on every day. A lot of motions comes out every day. The government will not start picking everything we say. Sometimes they put it, they are advisory.
It depends on if
some are not immediate. You see, some are, yes, after being adopted by the House and sent to the recommendation sent to the
And what was the motion at the time? The general principles of it, that it was in order or not in order?
No, it was in order. It was passed then. And that was 2019. And today, the coastal road is being constructed. Many other people would have had their own inputs too. So it's not that government is not actually working on some of these issues. Their recommendations, their advice to the executive, and the advices will be looked into. Then, where necessary, some of them will be implemented. Some might not be implementable. That's fact. Some might not be implementable. But the government will actually do something about it. Once we feel government is not doing what it's supposed to do, there are ways we actually react to at our own end to call government to order. And that's why we sometimes invite the MDs, the management of the ministries to come, the ministers to come.
Oversight.
Yes, and I think the CBN governor too was invited recently to come and explain some of the issues. And then again, someone also said something about independent candidates. Yes. When it comes to electoral issues.
Let me take Mazi. Mazi Okorafor has called in from Aruchuku. I don't know if you know the place. Good morning, Mazi Okorafor.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, I guess. So you see this issue of cyber matters arising. It's something I don't look at it. Just sitting down, I just reading papers on national issue and things. I started asking myself, last month, the World Bank, IMF, they had economic summit. And in that meeting, if you take away how many Africans contributed to that program. Now, they have doctored everything they want to do there, and they are not doing it just discrete to countries in terms of economic theory. They will have gotten a country what to do, how to manage their resources, and they are not even talking about how do they generate their revenue. What is the percentage of income of the low cadre? Because like Nigeria, as a case study, as a researcher, we have two categories of human beings in Nigeria today. Either you are rich or you are poor. The middle class is no longer obtainable. What do we do? All the economic skills we have compared with the CBN, what do we do to bring back the middle class? If we cannot bring back the middle class, no matter what type of economic theory the team is bringing and CBN is bringing, it will not work. Listen, the poor people suffer these taxes. Now sit down in your own environment, assess the top echelon in Nigeria. We call it the top class. How many of them pay taxes? How many of them? Just call it maybe 5% or 10% of them. The remaining percentage, 4 or matters, whether matter arising or not matter, the government should go back to the basics.
Okay. All right then.
Mazi,
I want to thank you very much. Thank you very much for calling in on that. But that's where we started from, and the Honourable.
In fact, on that area, what the policy of this government is trying to do is not to start increasing taxes, is to widen the coverage or whatever is being collected. Sometimes if you are collecting 5 naira from 20 million people, it's better than 50 naira from 10,000 people. Because
this is an added expense to the ordinary consumer.
No, that's why I said the policy of this government.
Yes.
So that's why people are saying that this is not actually in line with what the government actually
A lot of people are saying that this is putting further stress on the ordinary citizenry.
The National Assembly is actually looking into it already, and I think we will get back to you at the appropriate time.
Indeed.
So now, for what we also said, looking at what the various plans that we have for the coming amendments. You see, after the last election,
talking now about electoral matters
now. Now, after the last election, even though some people might not agree with me, that's still the best election so far in Nigeria. Looking at the indices, the difference between the error margin of the election this time around has actually been the best so far. If you're looking about the process of accreditation is where most of these incidents happened. We can say the last election, the error margin within the accreditation is just less than 10%, unlike what we usually have before. Many areas are actually trunking large numbers of votes, actually not getting it again. So it's only the politician that can tell you what this BVAS has actually done. But moving forward, what we are trying to do this time around, because during the last court cases that we had, most of the cases were actually more about the pre-election matters. So much of them are not about the election itself, about disqualification of one candidate. Another candidate seeking the qualification of maybe other party candidates. So we want to ensure that this time around we conclude the pre-election matters before the general election. So that will reduce the cases.
So are we talking therefore, are you speaking now about a proposed
amendments? Yes, that will go into the laws. Yes,
work is going on.
Yes, work is seriously going on. We are doing a lot of work on it already. And the general election too, the tribunals will also be concluded before swearing in of any winner.
Those are the provisions that are in.
And in doing that too, we need the support of everybody. The lawyers that brings in frivolous cases.
Okay, so you're working on.
Yes, there must be penalty for you bringing in frivolous cases, because some of these lawyers needed a CV for to become a SAN, and they just do pro bono and get a very bad case and tell you, let me go and give it a try.
Oh dear, you're going into the lawyer's territory there.
Yes, because these are the issues.
If you're not careful, we'll get a call from a lawyer or some lawyers who are saying that, look, you that's our area. Leave us out of it.
You see, something has to go, because we cannot be complaining. I was taken to court on a basis that is no longer a basis for, which was exclusion. Exclusion is no longer a matter for the tribunal again. And the person who took me to court is even a lawyer. After winning, she even went for appeal, wasting the time of the court. These are issues. Now, we are also looking at a situation from some of the recommendations we are getting, because we have been doing a lot of town hall meetings. We are moving it from one zone to the other. Last week, I think about 2 weeks ago, we were still in Ibadan. We've had one in Lagos. About 2 weeks that we should be in Castina, talking about the inclusion, the women inclusion, and also people bringing out some of their memorandum on whatever suggestion they have. We are collating some of these things together, and at the end of the day, we'll make a presentation to the National Assembly. Then we now have a public hearings over all what we have actually presented. So, and there are other areas too, because people are actually talking about the waste that is actually going into the production of over 80 to 90 million voters, ballot papers that were hardly used 30% of. what are the ways of cutting some of these costs. We need to clean the data of INEC. Most of the information that we have, most of the people on the register, we need to clean up the register. Many people are on the register that are dead. Many people have moved, and they are actually repeating their names. So during every election, we have never had more than 25 million voters, but the register is over 80 million.
Okay, let me bring in Ada and see what her concern is. Ada is in Jos. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Yori and your guest there, Honorable Balogun.
Good morning.
Ada calling from Jos Plateau State. Yori, when I last checked, I couldn't believe it that this particular cyber security levy is backed by law, you know. I begin to wonder which lawmakers, I'm not talking about this particular one now. Why did they allow that kind of law to be even in existence in the first instance? Let it be repealed, as far as I'm concerned. Let it be repealed. It's an obnoxious law, you know. Then, having said that, why can't the government of the day, why can't we start trying to look at issues from a sociological viewpoint? Why is crime on the increase, especially cyber crime? Why? It's due to bad governance. Unemployment, people are idle. It said that the idle hand makes work for the devil. Let us look at it from that angle, from a sociological viewpoint, you know. The tax is becoming too many. It's one too many for Nigerians. No matter what the National Registration Agency tells us about the tax and all that, nobody is going to listen again because we are hungry. A hungry man has no respect for law, authority, or even humanity. Let me leave it there. Or let's not go for Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. In fact, maybe connected with this, anybody picked up papers this morning will see that the National Assembly has okayed a death penalty for manufacturers of dangerous drugs. Death penalty. That's a very, very serious one. In fact, the producer was telling me earlier that he has a film report on that. Let's even take that report and come back to studio and talk about it.
Chairman of the Joint Committee, Senator Tahir Monguno, presenting the report to amend the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act to strengthen the operations of the agency, review penalty provisions, and enhance the power of the agency to prosecute drug-related offenses.
In most cases, in the course of enforcing the law or making an arrest, in drug-related cases, is normally a cartel. They organize themselves and obstruct the officers of the NDLA from performing their constitutional mandate, their legal mandate. So therefore, there is need to impose a very steep penalty to deter them from such acts of obstruction of exercising legal powers.
During the clause-by-clause consideration, the chief whip of the Senate, Senator Ali Ndume, disapproved of the committee's recommendations on Clause 11, which proposes a more lenient penalty for drug offenders of not more than 25 years imprisonment without option of fine, different from what is contained in the Act, which provides a life sentence. The lawmaker proposed a death sentence for anyone found guilty to serve as a deterrent to drug offenders. When his proposal was put to a voice vote, the ayes had it.
I am surprised that the committee is recommending a softer punishment. It was a life imprisonment. In fact, we should change it to death sentence.
It's time to call a spade a spade. If we want to eradicate drug trafficking in Nigeria, the only way to do that is to nip it from the board and to make it a capital offense.
However, some senators strongly disagreed with the new clause and called for a review, but they were overruled by the Senate.
I am accountable to my conscience and to my community. Death sentence is not a matter for a, nay, or nay. Everybody should vote so that we will be counted when it matters. Those who vote for death and those who vote for punishment.
The chairman of the committee, Senator Tahir Monguno, while speaking with journalists, advised lawmakers strongly opposed to the decision of the Senate to seek an amendment through a motion, but it's still not a guarantee that their request will be granted. Tijesu Adeoye, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, so as I said, that's the Senate in there, but it's the National Assembly still. There's always been a controversy, perhaps, when it comes to matters of death penalty. various heads of governments in the country, especially in the states, it is said that they are very, very reluctant to confirm such sentences. And this is a requirement. It requires a government consent, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the governor. Their sentences are actually carried out. The warrants must be signed by the governors. And if they are not actually being signed, that means we are just populating and congesting the prisons. So I think something should be done about that aspect. Maybe if the powers have to be removed from the governors, or I don't know, but we must do something about it, because so many people have been on death row, spending 10, 20, 30 years spending government resources.
Yes, but I'm sure you also will appreciate that this is the one aspect of the law that is sort of, it has this whole, it's controversial because it has to do with life. And nobody wants to put his signature, it would appear, to...
It's about your job, you signed for the job.
To end a life according to law. Nobody's, in spite of it being according to law, in spite of the fact that, I don't know if that is what they call judicial killing, and that's it is within the purview of the law. Still, people are reluctant. And it's not just in Nigeria. As you know, governments, we read about it all over the... It's not some have been on death row in other countries
why are
for 20
we actually
years.
putting people on death row if the execution will not be carried out? Then, that's why I said, if perhaps they would have left it at the life sentence, or 25 years.
Well, that's the punishment that they were saying people should vote for either. Shall it be the ultimate, the death penalty?
Because we are looking about passing these laws. This is sometimes some laws are not easy to execute. So you have to look at all the conditions attached. If you are going to give people 25 years, they know it's going to be 25 years. Government knows it's going to spend money for 25 years. You can actually plan for 25 years. But if you are giving people death sentence, and these people are not executed, and they'll be there and maybe 20, 30 years.
Well,
and then you can no longer plan, and you start having people overstaying in the prisons. You have congestion of the prison. And this is a situation we are talking of.
It's a moral
trying to
issue.
Decongest.
It's a moral issue.
And we are trying to decongest. You know, we're saying that before we even pass the laws, let's look at how it's going to be carried out.
Okay. Let me bring on Kesandu, calling in from Owerri. You're our last caller this morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Honorable, I greet you, sir. Kengo Kesandu Kingsley at Folarin State. You see, sir, let me start by this cybersecurity law. I think I strongly believe that you all have accepted and agree with Nigerians that that lady is massive humanity to man, judging by the level of unemployment in this country. I think that's one of the unfairest things the government is about to be meted on Nigerians. It will be very much unfair to us. Honorable, you talked about the beavers and innovations and all these things. You can also agree with me wholeheartedly that some of these things, the harm it has caused in the last general election, we followed so many tribunal cases. You see, even the transmission, INEC will just come up with a regulation, something that is not even in the law. The law does not even know it, but they see it as like INEC rule or guideline. So please, sir, I think to a reasonable extent, we must look at what happened in the last election and see some of these things. You know, you also talked about public hearings, and everybody have been shouting. See, while we appreciate some of these things, they are democratic processes. But see, the reason your people took you to the National Assembly, I ran for National Assembly under YPP from Okigwe South. It is for you to carry the yearnings and aspirations of the people and lay it bare before we start talking. Because there are certain issues that we won't even see the members of the National Assembly react to it and say, this is anti-people. Before the public, I said, if the public hearing comes, it will not be a unanimous agreement that Nigerians will say, no, we don't want it. But let us first see that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling.
You see, once again,
very briefly, please, because we've run out of time. Very briefly.
I think we
in closing,
we just have to know that the National Assembly will only do what you actually want, and that's why everybody have to come on board whenever laws are made. That's why I'm emphasizing this. It's not just only about this cyber crime bill or act now. It's about the activities of the General and National Assembly generally. It is very important. Look, when some of these bills are being passed, people hardly have enough information, and it's only the professionals in that field that can come out and brief us. And that's when you go for public hearing. And it is very important for those who are relevant in such areas to come and explain to people. You see, when you're talking about 0.5%, you see, if it had been 0.5, you know what we had before, on every transaction that might be 100 naira on transaction, that one is very easy. But now, because this one is on the amount, these are some of the information that people might not have gotten during the passage. 0.5% of the amount. That means if I'm putting 50 million naira, 0.5
percentage point.
Half percentage
in addition to all the other charges.
All the other charges.
That, you know,
so people might just say 0.5%. Oh, they might not feel it's something. But now they are now realizing it. Okay. So it's about every one of us.
You're saying that the public has to be a lot more participative.
Yes, and also we want the media too to also assist. Okay. Whenever issues are out, please call the people who can actually contribute on such matters.
We're going to have to leave
and bring them on board so that they can educate the people.
We're going to have to leave
on it.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bayo Balogun. Talk to us with on some of the processes ongoing in the National Assembly, and in particular for his area as chairman of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, things looking that might indeed be touched in the revision to the Electoral Act. Thank you very much once more for coming on.
You're welcome.
Indeed. So that's our program. We're going to have to leave it there for now. And please join us on Monday for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.